Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the reasons for and dimensions of assessing students. One of the main questions that is asked is why exactly are students assessed in the first place? One of the main reasons is to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of students. By gaining access to student grades, you're able to see what subjects or even with what type of assessment certain students are strong in or where they may struggle, and you're able to address those based off of those results. Also, through assessment, you're able to gain an average, a class average on a classroom scale, but you're also able to calculate local averages, state averages, national averages, international averages. And what you can do, and you can use it according to any scale, you're able to compare student comprehension. You're able to do an inter-individual comparison to show what students may be struggling and where they're struggling. Also, in terms of assessing students for the betterment of educators, teachers are able to see assessment grades, see where students are struggling or what parts of a topic or subject students are struggling in, and work with those students to make them better understand, whether it's the type of instruction or learning style that student prefers, or presenting the material in a different, more direct, or based on a different type of assessment. You can help students in that way. Also necessary is to see if any students may need special program services. This is done through diagnostic testing, screen testing, and can really help get students any sort of educational assistance they may need. Also, just more generally, to gauge student performance. Grades have been foundational in education for a very long time. And while the possibility of bias is always present, grades are always necessary, or at least in current academic, they are necessary. Also, a longitudinal track of student progress based on their work. You're able to see if during certain units or in certain subjects, students are struggling or excelling based on the work they're doing over the entirety of a week, a marking period, a year, or their academic career. Specifically, how do we assess students with special needs? A big part of it is referencing a class average. Norm referencing can help put students and align them according to how they compare to certain averages. That way, educators are able to see if that student is excelling in certain areas or if they're struggling. Also, using criteria to show mastery of a unit. Having specific criteria for mastery right now is at 80%. But by giving students specific criteria or the educator having specific criteria to show mastery, they're able to gauge students with special needs once they've hit that mark. Also, a specific type of assessment is process and active process assessment. As an educator, when it comes to students with special needs, but really all students, you want to have an understanding of how they're reaching the answers that they put onto paper or that they speak aloud. What is their process? And process assessments do just that. You're able to see how students work to find their answers. But active process assessments actually get the students to talk to the instructor or to an aide to explain their process. And having those words, having the student actually explain it themselves can give very, very important insights into how that student responds to different educational stimulus. There's also screening tests, which screening tests are extremely important to find areas that need development within each student. Areas that need more focus or more direct instruction, and screening tests show the instructor exactly where they should be focusing. Diagnostic assessments are also extremely important because the results of diagnostic tests can be sent to the any special ed team member, and they can use it. They can use the score to better diagnose or help along a diagnosis of possible learning disabilities in students. And what can also be done with students who may show signs of having a possible learning disability is these educators can work through interviews with parents or guardians of those students tied to their diagnostic assessment scores to form a better background and history of the student to show what the best way forward may be, whether it's the development of an IEP or more direct instruction or some sort of academic assistance. In a more long-term sense, there's also portfolio assessments for students with special needs. And what this shows is it's a accumulating portfolio of work which can span a long time within the academic year and can show a line with which the student is being observed and their work showing either deficiencies in certain areas or strengths. and it gives a glimpse of the student's work across multiple areas. The curriculum-based measures are more standard unit tests and quizzes and things of that nature, but there are multiple changes that can happen with this, but we'll go into that a little bit later. Specifically, all of these assessments show or tell something about students, whether it's a class average, whether that student is excelling, or whether they're struggling. But not just in a broad sense, it can actually get more specific based on the criteria that you're using, or by process and active process assessments, which can highlight a student's struggles, whether they need tests spoken to them, or if a change in stimuli is required, or also a glimpse into their decision making. Screening tests and diagnostic assessments are extremely important for getting students possibly the educational help that they may need, or through the diagnosis of a learning disability, which can help with that student's instruction in the long run. All of these are instrumental for better understanding students and helping educators better understand their students. In terms of adaptations and modifications that are made to assessments for students with special needs, there's a big difference between accommodating and modifying. Accommodating just means trying to help a student fit their learning style into an assessment better, whether it's changing of stimuli within a test or anything of that nature, versus modifying is a fundamental change within the assignment to better help that a student. Um, Possibilities for these are universal design for learning, which can be both accommodating and can modify, which basically just opens up choice within any sort of assessment or assignment, where students can choose what works best for them based off what they're interested in, what their passions are, or what they know helps them learn in the best way. Rubrics and checklists can also be instrumental for students with special needs, giving them a written out list of what's expected, and they can go and along through the assignment and check off or have specific rubric for what they need, or both, which can really help them in terms of understanding what is being asked of them and what way it is to be answered. There's also the ability to get parents involved. Educators, through the previous forms of assessment, have a very good understanding of the way in which their students learn the best, or what types of learning styles, or what exactly a student may need presented to them to better understand the material. That information can be passed off to parents, and the cycle of learning doesn't just stop at school, but the parents can actually keep that educational cycle going throughout the entirety of the day, from school to home, to keep those students engaged and feeling comfortable in their work. There's also completely alternative forms of assessment. While this is limited to 1% of the student body, according to the Every Student Succeeds Act, it is still instrumental for the students that receive it, because it can change those sort of curriculum-based measures and create a whole new form of assessment which can play into students' strengths and help students who may have a learning disability or any sort of special need within education to receive an assessment that fits their form of learning the best. And there are just broad adaptations to testing, whether it be input or output adaptations, which can change testing stimuli through auditory or written forms. And what it is adaptations and modifications are broad. Students and educators can work together, and educators as a whole can take any sort of adaptation they want to play to their students' strengths. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.